kind of the next segment where we had a Rushing Brook choir that was slated to sing at the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And there was some miscommunication, whatever. I'm going to play a little bit of the clip. I'm going to go through a little bit of the article, and then we can discuss this because I have some issues at how this all went down. Okay, so for the people that are listening, what happened was this school was allowed. I guess Kevin McCarthy and some other people invited them to speak in like a rotunda area of the Capitol, and they were singing. And what you saw in the background of the video is these police officers, and there was a female police officer talking to some people, and then all of a sudden a guy walks over and cuts them short, and like, you're done. Now, initially when this came out, it was said that there were people that were offended, and that's kind of what ticked me off when they said there was people that were offended by these people singing. I think it was a Star Spangled Banner, and then obviously it was a he said she said. Well, they didn't have the rights to do it, like they didn't get authorization, and then they did have authorization. So let me read. I have an article up from the Daily Signal. I have some different issues. I don't care about the he said she said. I don't care if they had permission or not. And I know a lot of people can be like, "Whoa, what are you talking about?" Maybe I'll say what I think first. I think we've gone way too far when we have to give people special permission, especially on public tax funded property, to be able to do things. Like, colleges have free speech zones. Well, they still do, even though they're not supposed to. So you go to a college, tax money's paid to a lot of these colleges, people pay to go there, and then they're like, hey, listen, this country's built on free speech, it's in the First Amendment, but you can only do that here. Hey, this is the Capitol that you guys paid for, but if you want to do anything here, like if you want to sing the Star Spangled Banner, you can't do it without special permission. I'm like, what kind of country are we turning into? So I'll read a little bit. We can discuss a little more, Jim. So this is from the Daily Signal. I was shocked. I was dismayed. I was stunned. David Roshbach, the founder and director of the Rushing Brook Children's Choir, told the Daily Signal of the incident, which took place on Friday, May 26th. I couldn't believe that was happening, that they would stop the national anthem of all songs. So what happened is he said he had secured permission from 3 congressional officers for the choir to sing in the Capitol. He said South Carolina Republican Rep. Timmons, Joe Wilson, and provided documents giving permission. So he had documents. And the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, also supposedly gave them permission. So here's what I think went down. And again, this is all speculation, is there are some sort of policies about singing there. And the Capitol Police told them, well, we don't allow anyone to sing, or we don't want anyone to do anything in there. But what happened is March 29th of this year in the Capitol Rotunda, a group of 80 pastors was allowed to sing there. So which one is it? I mean, who's lying? This is the thing. You sit here and you just, what's going on? So that's why I kind of believe initially it was probably someone got offended, or someone didn't like what was going on, and they want to pull a power trip. And because we have these silly policies, these silly rules in place, they get away with limiting people's rights. And I think that's what aggravates me about this, because what was it? There was a couple years ago, they shut down all parks in Washington, D.C. And I'm sitting there like, you're shutting down parks? And then what happened is, I guess the park police were like, I guess it was a funding. That's what it was. There was a funding issue, and they were going to shut down the government, right? Remember, and they're always like, oh, people aren't going to get Social Security, but they always fund Social Security, so that's a lie. So what they did is they shut down the national parks, and you had all these people going there, and they were moving the gates that were put up and going in, and there was people for the national park saying, hey, we'll go, you don't have to pay me, even though everyone knew, because they were a federal employee, once the finances was resolved and the Congress and Senate passed the bill, they were going to get back pay. What they did is they said, we'll go in and we'll let people go in, and they're like, no, you can't, because what they want to do is, the government wants to punish its people. for the inability to do their job. You sit there, you're like, that national park is mine. That capital is mine. And I think people should really understand that and believe that. I'm not being hyperbolic here. It's ours. And we have to understand that. And I think politicians have to realize that. Because I think when I say people, we flipped the script, right? Politics has done a 180. They're like, we're in charge. You listen to us. And that's not how it's supposed to be. We're in charge. The people says we the people. We're in charge. And I think what happens is by following all these little rules and laws and permitting things, and you can only do this here, and you're only limited to speak here or have this thing there. What we're doing is we're accepting their terms, and we have to push back on that.
Justin, you must have missed Joe Biden's speech last year when he said "we" actually means "we, the government."
Oh, really?
He actually said that in one of his speeches.
I definitely missed that then.
But yeah, no, this is a situation where a little bit of common sense goes a long way, because I can't imagine, given how long the Capitol building has existed, I can't imagine this is the first time that anyone's wanted to sing in the Capitol building, whether it's for a Christmas carol or you name it. So I can't imagine this is the first time it's ever happened. But again, too, it's like they're singing the national anthem. So again, it's not like they're in there all day singing and you're like, you don't know what to do. It's like, okay, they're singing one song. You can wait till they're done. They're not causing any crazy harm or anything like that, and trying to figure out what the situation is there. And I mean, even if, there was a communication gap where they got approval, but it wasn't communicated to the right people, I mean, that's something you can quickly resolve. So.
Well, you said it right. Like, I think we can all be reasonable people, and again, what's happening is we're getting rid of reason for laws or policy or precedent. We're absolving us of critical thought because there's these policies or this way we've always done it or whatever. And again, like I'm reading right now, I have Kevin McCarthy's tweet up that he did. He's like, just learned kids were interrupted while singing our national anthem at the Capitol. Unacceptable. These children are welcomed by my office because your Capitol is back open. And that's what I'm glad he said, that your Capitol is back open. And those two other those congressional people who invited them to sing in the article said these children were welcomed by the Speaker's office to joyfully express their love of this nation while visiting the Capitol. And we are all very disappointed to learn their celebration was cut short. We are delighted that the People's House has been reopened, particularly for our children. And this is the thing, is they're children here. We can be reasonable. If these kids were tearing down statues, spray painting things, holding a riot, okay, like, hey, listen.
Then they might have been invited in.
What?
The way the government's been acting lately, they might have been invited. We need space for them to burn things down.
They would have, hey, break out the marshmallows, right? Yeah. They were breaking out marshmallows. But this is another long-standing issue I've had lately with what goes on in our society. We have a lot of people that are just willing to outsource their thinking to laws or precedent or something and not actually sit there and challenge it. If I was one of those police officers there and there was kids singing and no one was complaining, and I didn't care if people complain anyways, they're singing a national anthem, I'd be like, well, you're complaining to the wrong person, let them sing. But to sit there and think that you're on your high horse and you're going to cut these kids off and all this other stuff, it just goes to how society has stopped being able to critically think, to reason. And I hope stories like this get out in the open more. I hope to see them go away, to tell you the truth. But if they go out there, I hope what it does is there's that backlash and people are starting to say, enough, we need to be done with this.
And it seems like a small scale, like, oh, it's just the government and it's just like a Capitol police officer just shutting down a choir. Seems like, it's in his jurisdiction to do so. Not a big deal. Don't worry about it. But that's the theme that we've been seeing, and it's happening at a bigger and bigger scale, where the government is saying, "Hey, you can't do this." Like we're pretty much
Yes.
using our authority to prevent you from doing that. And we're
In the
seeing it
people's
happen.
house.
Yeah, we're seeing it happen all across. We're seeing it happen to like farmers, like we talked about.
Yeah.
So the government stepping in saying, "Oh, you can't farm here. Or you can't you can't do these things because we're shutting you down."
Yeah. Well, that leads us into a good transition